not in Chennai, we don't have to sing Vande Mataram. Thank you, all of you, for braving the weather and coming here. The topic of my talk today is immigration and its discontents, international migration after Brexit, Trump, and Brussels. I could have added a few more names of leaders in this and a few more countries, cities in there, but I think you get the point. Let me give you a brief outline of what I'm going to be talking about. Immigration is a hot button issue. I'm going to try to answer a question on, is international immigration a crisis? If not, what are the causes of discontents that you see in cities and countries around the world? Is immigration the cause, or is it just a scapegoat? And then I'll talk a little bit about the forces that propel immigration. Finally, I'll give a few comments on the determinants of immigration in future. In the US, across the Atlantic, we have a president who was a real estate developer, and then he has been elected on the promise of building a wall with Mexico. He has been re-elected on the promise of banning Muslim immigration into the United States, and by calling Mexican immigrants rapists and criminals. But this discontent towards immigration is not just in the US or Europe, it's also in many Asian countries. In 2013, we saw in Singapore, Singaporeans talking about Singapore is for Singaporeans, and the government had to change some policies to appease the public. In India, here, we want Bangladeshis out. Amit Shah a few years ago said that we would build a fence between Bangladesh and India so tall that not even a bird would dare to fly into India. 2 years ago, Malaysia and Thailand, they had boatloads of Bangladeshi and Rohingya immigrants abandoned on the sea, in Andaman Sea. And then finally, we had last year Brexit. In the UK, a majority of people voted against leaving for EU, and the primary cause for Brexit was immigration. About 100 years ago, similar discontents in the United States led the government to impose restrictions on immigration, restrictions based on ethnicity and nativity. And people are now asking this question, is history going to repeat itself? People are asking this question, is it the end of globalization? I will not talk about globalization here. I'll leave my conversation mostly about immigration, but there is a question that is being asked, is this the end of immigration? The answer is, if you look at the right-wing movement in many countries, and to some extent it might have actually begun. Many countries have responded to public discontent towards immigration by creating restrictions on immigration, by creating walls and fences and electronic surveillance on immigration. On the other side, many countries have also given some kind of carrot and stick policy to ensure that sending countries or transition countries reduce immigration. So European countries, sometimes individually and sometimes with the EU together, they have tried to restrict immigration by giving grants to sending countries or transition countries. So as a result of all that, we saw in 2015, Europe received 1 million immigrants, refugees. In 2016, the number was down to a third, and a lot of them are being deported. At the time of the fall of the Berlin Wall, there were 16 countries with border with other countries, with fences and walls. Now there are 65 of them. Hungary has built a wall of 280 miles along the barbed fence. Spain has a wall with Morocco. Morocco in turn has a sand with Western Sahara. Greece has built a 4 meters wall with Turkey. As a result of that, many people are actually using the Mediterranean to come to Greece. As a result, and the US, we know that US has always had a war with Mexico, but then there are promises of building a much larger wall. Most of the time, immigrants have responded by taking more perilous routes. That has led to increase in accidents, increase in deaths while crossing these routes. But it has not stopped immigration. In the US, there's a lot of documentation that shows that immigrants have basically moved from areas where they used to, normally they used to follow, to more perilous route. You see the same thing in Europe as well. People have taken different routes, which are more perilous. So that leads to my first question. Are these discontents that we see around the world, are they related to immigration, or is it because of something else? I'm going to say that it is because of some other reasons. And I'll give you several examples for that. So let's start with Brexit. Election Commission results from Brexit shows that top 10 districts with the lowest leave vote, that is less than 30% of the people in those districts voted for Brexit. These are the districts that have 28 to 45% of the population. This is more than a third of the population on average is foreign born. Top 10 districts that voted for Brexit, where more than 70% of the people voted for Brexit, they have only 3 to 15% of the population that's foreign born. So it's really not immigration that was causing these discontents. It's not immigration that's causing people to vote for Brexit. I'll give you more examples. In Europe, countries that are most opposed to immigration, Poland, for instance, has refused to have any Syrian refugees being relocated, resettled there. They have less than 2% of their population that's foreign born. EU on average has about 11% foreign born population. Hungary again has about 6% of its population is foreign born, is completely against resettlement of Syrians there. So another example, countries like Spain and Ireland, which have a huge proportion of increase in population of foreign born in a very short period of time when their economies were growing very fast. We don't see much national level debate or national level angst towards immigration as we've seen in countries like France and the UK. Let me give you an example of the United States. United States that have received a large number of immigrants are very comfortable with immigrants. I live in New York, and New York has actually, despite all this growing atmosphere against immigration at the federal level, has continued to follow policies and that are helpful to immigrants. 2 years ago, New York started ID card that was primarily to provide some kind of ID card for the undocumented. But they didn't want the ID card to be used by people to actually identify the undocumented. So as soon as the information about the ID, information to give the IDs is prepared, their records are wiped out. They have gone out of their way, New York City has gone out of their way to actually create incentives for the elites in New York to take the New York ID. You get special incentive discounts for going to museums, you get special incentives to go to theaters, and if you have this ID card, and you also get special incentives for the subway or to restaurants or to theaters. So not only that, New York is one of the states in the country that provides undocumented students tuition subsidy, as do 21 other states in the country. New York is one of the few states in the country that provides children of undocumented people health insurance. So there are, so this is a state which has a large number of immigrants. Despite growing angst towards immigrants in the whole of the country, this is a state that has continued to provide incentives for immigrants, continue to provide do things to integrate immigrants. Turkey received 3 million refugees, which is about 3 to 4% of its population. Europe, the whole of Europe has received 1 million refugees. And discontent was refugee presence is far more in Europe than in Turkey. In a research that I've done with one of my colleagues, I looked at a survey where the question was being asked about in Turkey about refugees, whether it's a responsibility of Turkish citizens to integrate or to resettle refugees, and a majority of people in Turkey actually think that it's a historical and humanitarian responsibility of Turkish population to resettle Syrian refugees. You don't hear the same sentiments in Europe. So in that sense, there are some other factors that are causing these discontents. Let me go forward a little bit and say that I don't even think immigration is a crisis. Oftentimes when you hear people talking about immigration, you hear them say that immigration is a problem that needs to be solved. Immigration is a crisis that needs to be resolved, that it needs to be contained. I think immigration, as compared to many other dimensions of globalization, is probably one of the least flourished dimensions. And I'll give you a few examples. For instance, export to GDP, which many economists consider as a measure of, they used to consider a measure of globalization, or it was in 1870, export to GDP ratio was 5%. It increased, has kept on increasing throughout the 20th century. It went to 20% by 1991, and by 2015 it was 29% of the world GDP. Immigration in 1990 was 3% of total world population. In 1991, what was immigration as proportion of population? The same 3%. In 2015, it's again the same 3%. So immigration has simply kept pace with population growth. It has not increased. Despite the growing number of people that you see, that's partly because of increase in mobility, it's not immigration. People don't want to go away from where they, most people like to spend the rest of their life in the place of their birth, in the town or the village or the city of their birth. Here is another dimension of globalization. It is foreign direct investment. In 1971, so I have this from 71 to 2017, it was about 10 billion worldwide foreign direct investment. By 1991, it increased 19 times. By 2001, it increased another 10 times. And even after this Great Recession and the financial turmoil and all that, even after that, if you look at the last 10 years foreign direct investment, it's about $2 trillion. So the other dimensions of globalization have continued to expand. They are much larger than what they were 30, 40, 50 years ago. Immigration has been just keeping pace with population growth. Now, so I've spent all this time trying to prove to you that I don't think immigration is a crisis, and I don't think immigration is the primary cause of the discontent. But then what are those causes? I'm going to go for 7 of them, which I believe are the reasons why there's a lot of discontent towards immigration, or discontent as such in many countries. And I'm going to try to see if I can prove whether any of that cause is because of immigration. Now, culture and identity. This is, most immigrant receiving countries have cultural and identity issue. But it's countries that have more immigration, countries that are more heterogeneous, more diverse countries are more easily able to get absorbed immigrants. So it's not really immigration per se, but the ability of the country to absorb them. Social and demographic change. Social and demographic change could be a factor why we see a lot of discontent. If you see an increasing number of shops where there are more ethnic groups are owning shops, and if you see people of your own type not owning that many shops, that could create discontent. There could be more discontent if you see your government spending more resources in the education of children who are not of your own ethnicity. Again, cities and states that have higher level of immigration, or cities and states that have traditionally had immigration, those cities are more able to address the integration or the needs of new immigrants than cities or states that don't have immigration. So economists have tried to answer this question: what is the cause of wage stagnation? Is it immigration, is it technological change, or is it foreign trade? So most of the studies have actually been about whether it is technological change or foreign trade. And they found that something like 50 to 60% of the factor, the reason is technological change. A much smaller proportion, maybe 10 to 15%, is because of trade. Immigration is a distant third factor. Studies shows that between 3 to 5% of the stagnation in wages in the United States is because of immigration. Now, the question of inequality. It is true that inequality has been rising in the United States. It's also been rising, especially proportion of income with the top 0.1% of the population that has been growing. Is it because of immigration, or is it because of, again, people have looked at that and they think that is because of technological change. If you look at inequality only in Western world, so inequality within countries have increased. Inequality, if you look at the whole world, between countries has declined. So I have put Gini coefficient here for 1990 and 2015. You can see that inequality between countries has declined. Productivity stagnation is another factor that economists have talked about, and there is a lot of concern about productivity stagnation. Robert Gordon, who is an economist at Northwestern University, he talks about 6 different headwinds because of which there's productivity stagnation. I'll talk about only the one that's about related to immigration, which is demographic changes. This is a chart that I made using UNDP data, and what it shows is the number of people in the working age population from 15 to 59-year-old. And what you see here is Japan is this thing at the bottom. Japan's working age population peaked around 1995. And since then it has been losing working age population. And part of the reason is part of decline in working age population is one of the reasons why productivity in Japan has been declining. Demographers also look at something called dependency ratio, which is basically working age population divided by population that's dependent, so population less than 15 or above 59. It's more or less the same story. Countries on this side, Japan, South Korea, US, China, these are the countries that are going to, and Europe of course, that have to worry about it. Now, how is this related to immigration? We are talking about whether the decline in productivity, which part of it could be caused by increased dependency ratio or decline in working age population. How is that related with immigration? Economists who study these issues, they basically say the solution would be to increase immigration. Because in immigration or more working age, there are 2 good things about immigrants. One is that they migrate at an age when they are highly productive. And this is also an age when they have in their reproductive phase, so they also have children and more children. Another cause of discontent in these countries is lack of confidence in the government or lack of confidence in the intellectual elite to actually suggest policy solutions that would create scenarios or policies that would actually increase the well-being of the masses of the public. How is that related to immigration? Well, in terms of this lack of confidence, many of these Western countries have not had a very candid debate on immigration. For instance, and also governments have not been able to fulfill their promises. David Cameron, when he became Prime Minister, for years, became Prime Minister on the promise that immigration would be reduced to tens of thousands. And throughout his tenure, immigration was more than 200,000 a year. So the public thinks that the government is not able to reduce immigration. There's also the fear that it's actually not within government's control if there's high undocumented immigration. Increase in refugee flows. That has been, at least in more recent years in Europe, that has been one of the causes why it has created a lot of fear. Psychologist Andrew Solomon talks about reactive prejudice, that we've all become very prejudiced towards refugees, partly because they come from countries where there are civil wars. These are civil wars, they feel that these are breeding grounds for international terrorism. There is a fear that immigrants might bring terrorism with them. Even though there is researchers who looked into this issue, they find, at least in the United States, they don't find that immigrants are involved in terrorism or crime. So research in the US shows that immigrants, the places where there's high immigration, crime rate is less. Immigrants themselves, their own involvement in crime is less. But these conversations are not always happening in a very rational or reasonable environment. I hope I've convinced you that immigration, at least I believe, that is not the primary driver of the discontent. So then that leads to this question that even though many of these countries you see a lot of discontent towards immigration, and many countries are actually implementing policies to restrict immigration, whether immigration would be would actually, do I think this is the end of immigration? I think immigration, and most countries understand that, it's a cheap source of labor, scarce talent, and entrepreneurial ingenuity. Effective immigration actually requires restricting mobility. No government is talking about, no political party is talking about restricting mobility. They're only talking about restricting immigration. But in order to restrict immigration, you have to restrict mobility. President Trump's, one of his initial orders was actually to restrict mobility from 7 Muslim countries. And the way many in the corporate sector, the way many in the universities reacted to that, makes it clear that international global corporations and universities are not willing to see a restriction in mobility or restriction in immigration. Restricting immigration would actually mean that you'll be restricting any benefit from tourism industry. So one of the ways that I tell my student about this is that one of the ways the United States can partake economic prosperity in China is by inviting Chinese to come to the US and spend their money. So last few years we've seen a huge increase in students to the United States. And in China, every student has one set of parents and 2 sets of grandparents with a lot of money. They all come to the US or other Western countries and spend the money. So the Western world can partake in Chinese prosperity by encouraging tourism. And that's something that they don't want to really forego. Given the discontents that are going on around the world, I think there'll be many countries will impose restrictions on immigration, but immigration, unlike in 1990, has become a very global phenomenon. So at that time, most immigration was from Europe to the United States or to the Americas. Now immigration, Europe is about maybe to Europe. And maybe another 20% go to the United States. Immigration has become a very global phenomenon. A lot of immigrants go to Asia, and within Asia there's a lot of immigration going on. And many countries that are struggling with population decline are implementing policies for immigration. For instance, in 2013, China passed its first immigration policy. In the same year, Turkey passed a policy for entry and exit of immigrants. So I think it's a phenomenon that's become very global, and just a Brexit or Trump in the US will not restrict immigration. But at the same time, I don't think countries will be, because of rising terrorism and because of issues related to culture, I don't think we'll see much of an increase, a dramatic change in immigration policy. We won't see a borderless world. Thank you.